know if anybody have heard of the word hazard before. I would love to hear from you as well. Hazard. If you've heard of the word hazard, you can type it in the comment section. You can as well unmute yourself and say briefly, what is hazard? Briefly, what is hazard? Let's not be shy to speak. As teachers, we usually tell our students, don't be shy to speak. Don't be shy to speak. So it is on us now to, we are also learning now. So let's try as much as possible not to be shy to speak. You are not wrong, you are not right. We are all here to learn, including me that I'm speaking. Okay, so what is a hazard? Someone, I want someone, please.
Danger.
So, hazard, it's anything that has the potential to cause harm to people or environment, I think.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. Someone said hazard is danger. Someone said hazard is anything that has the potential to cause harm in the comment section. Thank you, Michael. Charity said hazard are dangerous occurrence. You are all right. But the key word, before we move on, I would explain, you are all right. So let's quickly go to the next slide. So what are we learning from today's session? Basically, what we are learning from today's session is to be able to define and understand the terms hazard and also control measures. Know the types of hazard you have, be able to conduct a risk assessment and understand the role of a risk assessment in preventing accidents, and be able to document and also communicate hazards and risks, which is why we are here today. So at the end of this session, this is what you are going to learn. Okay, so of course, I've asked you what a hazard is, and we've all said our own points, but looking at it, which were all right, a hazard is anything that has the potential. You can see that that word probability and potential were highlighted. Okay, you can see that they are highlighted, or likelihood. So when you say probability, potential, likelihood, you are actually saying something that can, basically, something that can cause injury to people and damage to property. So this is what a hazard is. Someone said in the comment section, Mr. Abiodun said, hazard, the only hazard you know is the one that is a footballer. I don't know if you have any football fan here. The hazard that plays for Real Madrid is actually a person's name. So don't go and see someone, they call someone hazard, and I say, look at this person, he's the one causing danger. Okay, in health and safety, hazard is anything that has the potential and the probability or likelihood. I use those three words because they all mean the same thing. It depends on you as an individual to understand or to pick the one that is conversant with you, that you like, but they all mean the same thing. Or we can actually still add can, that word can. So anything, remember anything. Anything in this sense could be a human. Anything in this sense could be an animal. Anything in this sense could be a situation or a condition which we are going to see. So the end product of it is harm to people, damage to properties and equipment. Okay, so this is what a hazard is. So quickly, we'll go on. What are the examples of hazard? So for every hazard, there is a source. It is coming from somewhere. Okay, for every hazard, it is coming from somewhere. It is created by a thing or a situation, sometimes by we ourselves. So in the kitchen, one example, though we have many, but one example of hazard in the kitchen is a knife. Some of you would want to say, how is a knife a hazard? Yes, we know it's a hazard. A knife is good when you use it properly, but it can be a hazard. It has the potential, that word, potential. That word, potential. It has a probability, that word, probability. It has the likelihood, that word, likelihood. Even me that I'm speaking here, I have the likelihood to cause harm. Right or wrong? Let me hear in the comment section. Do I have the likelihood to cause harm as an individual, or do you, as an individual, have the likelihood to cause harm? I want to hear your response.
Right.
Right? Okay, so that
Yes.
means every living thing is a potential what? Hazard. Okay? So we are not just looking at living thing now. We are looking at situations. We are looking at condition. In the laboratory, some of us who work in the laboratory are science teachers. You will know that benzene is actually a hazard. because it has the probability, likelihood to cause leukemia. Our knife has the probability, the likelihood to cause cut. Okay, so we also have a material or nature. So when we say nature, we mean probably, like, of course, everywhere is natural. Nature can be things that are built by God already. So things that are built by God already, we have microorganisms. For my biology teachers who understand this properly, microorganisms. Microorganisms are those minute organisms that we do not see with our eyes. Okay, so those things can actually cause tuberculosis, mycobacterium. If you've done for me, I studied microbiology in the university, so these things are things we play with. Those microbacterium can cause tuberculosis. Of course, we have various types of microorganisms. We have the ones that we are conversant with, or that recently caused a pandemic, which is a virus. It's also a microorganism, but not a bacteria. What's that name again? COVID-19 virus. We can see that it has the potential to cause harm, which it did. We can also see that it causes death. Because how was microorganism being contacted, or COVID-19 contacted? It was through coming in contact with it. It was on its own, jeje. It has a likelihood to cause the virus, jeje. But we as humans now went on our own to have a contact with it. And it resulted to the virus, the pandemic and the virus that we have. Of course, in our offices and homes, we have electricity. Electricity is good. But there is this saying that the person that found electricity was killed by electricity. So you cannot tell me that you are using the electricity that was found by someone that it killed the person, will be telling me electricity is not good, which can cause shock or electrocution. Of course, in our home and offices, wet floors as well. Have we witnessed where someone sleep on a floor? And of course, I don't have to tell you, these days we hear news online where we hear someone sleeping and falling, and from there, it goes to heaven. He or she goes to heaven. So it's a hazard. Even in our factory, when they are doing wedding activities, not just in our factory now for wedding activities, when in our streets, close to our houses, someone is actually using the whiteboard. I will have to disable the whiteboard for us. Please don't activate the whiteboard so we don't have issues, please. Okay, let me take that as a mistake. We are all learning. Okay, so in our factory, behavior, this is mostly conversant with in schools, even as our adults, so we do bully people. So bullying, it's a behavior which has the probability or the potential of causing anxiety, fear, and depression in people. So anybody that's into bullying is a hazard, and that activity the person is doing is a hazardous activity. Okay, so these are some of the examples of the type of hazards that we can encounter, or examples of hazard that we can encounter. Okay, so what is a hazard? Hazards can be in two forms. It can come like an unsafe condition. A safe condition in the sense that it can be a slippery or wet floor. So when we say unsafe condition, I am actually saying anything or any condition that can cause accidents. Let me give another example that is not in this slide. If you have a car, some of us have a car, if the brake is not working, is that car in a safe condition or an unsafe condition? I want someone to say, I want someone to answer, or you can drop it in the comment section.
Unsafe condition.
It is an unsafe condition because without the brake, there is a potential for it to cause what? Accident. So slippery and wet floors are unsafe condition. Dusty work areas and rooms are unsafe condition because the dusty work area can, if someone that is asthmatic come into that work area and inhale those dust, he or she can have an attack. Or over a long period of time, you come into a dusty area, you can have what is called respiratory diseases. Congested layout. Congested layout in the sense that a whole lot of persons are packed up in one room. Like we usually say, they pack us like sardine. the usual Nigerian way. They pack us like sardine. Okay? So such persons, such conditions are not safe. Octopus wiring. Sorry for using that bogus word. But octopus wiring is those ones we normally do when we want to charge our phones and we go to a neighbor's house and the neighbor's extension is full. We bring our own extension, we plug. and we fill up the extension, we go again. Someone wants to plug or wants to charge, and the extension is full, and the person brings another extension. It is called octopus wiring because the usual octopus have many tentacles. So when you begin to connect many wires together within a spot, it's an unsafe condition that lacks the likelihood to cause accidents. Protruding nails, sharp objects are all unsafe conditions. Scattered objects on the floor. That is one form that we can have a hazard. Remember, hazard is anything that lacks the likelihood to cause accidents, and they can come in two forms: unsafe condition and also unsafe acts. So what do we mean by unsafe act? And a act is something that we do or we fail to do. For example, if you are not given authorization to operate an equipment and you are going there to operate it, that is an unsafe act because you don't know how that equipment works. You don't know what the modus operandi of the equipment, and you are not trained to operate that equipment. And you go there to operate. That is an unsafe act. In that sense, you are becoming a hazard. You are putting yourself, and not just you alone, others in danger because, for example, you operate that machine and it explodes. You become injured. If anybody is close to that place or within that vicinity, he or she becomes injured as well. Another example is removing safety device. For example, in your home, or I want to use a typical example. I don't want to go to the manufacturing or workplace now. I want to bring it home. In your house, you have a generator, and the generator within the exhaust area, it says, do not remove the panel covering the hot part of the area. And simply because you want to do a fast one, or probably you fix the generator in a hurry, and you remove that area that is covering that hot part of your generator, or even the moving, okay, let me use the moving part of your generator. That moving part that after you on it usually rolls, and you do not cover it back. And maybe your child or someone who is not aware of that open area of your generator comes closer to it, and the moving part picks probably the leg, the clothes, the hand of the person. In that situation, you have done an unsafe act by removing that safety device. So that is a hazard. Using defective equipment. Defective equipment in the sense that you know that this knife that you want to use, you know that that chair that you want to sit down, the leg is not balanced properly, and you are using it to sit down. Let me just manage it. Let me just manage it. Or you know that that chair that your children or your pupil want to sit on is not strong and okay. It is shaking. And you say, oh, just manage it. In that situation, that is an unsafe act. Horseplay in this sense, that is what we call rough play in Nigeria, rough play. When you see children throwing stones at themselves, when you see some adults pushing themselves, there's this Nigerian proverb, pidgin proverb that say, if show glass na belle, if belle gets show glass, everybody will be sweating the inside. You don't know the medical condition of someone, and you are pushing the person anyhow. That is a horseplay, because what if you push the person loses balance and hits his or her head on the wall or any object? So willful intent to injure is also an unsafe act. Like, I will injure him. We hear most of our children saying this. I will beat him. I will break his leg. I will break his head. It's an unsafe act. In that situation, that person is a hazard. Or working under the influence of alcohol. My, oh my. You are going to work, or a student is coming to work, he or she has taken drug or alcohol. That person is becoming a hazard, because we know that alcohol has the potential to impede your sense of judgment. And when it impedes your sense of judgment, it becomes an issue. Then bullying as well is also a hazard, because it can put people into depression. It can make people lose their confidence as well. Okay, so let's move on. So what are the categories of hazard? What are the categories of hazards that we have? We have, now we have looked at the types of hazard. We want to look at categories of hazard. We have biological, which of course, anything that has to do with nature, bacteria, viruses, insects, harmful plants. We know that some plants are harmful. And some of us, or individually, we have, what is it called again? We react to some plants, even when we eat them or we come closer to them, okay? Then bloods and other fluids. A blood of a HIV patient is actually a biological hazard. The sputum of a tuberculosis patient is actually a hazard because through that you can actually contact the disease as well. So the second one is ergonomic hazard. Ergonomic has to do with fitting the workplace with what we do. Sorry for this example. Ergonomic hazard has to do with our workstation design. Our workstation design, workload, okay, how we push and lift materials are part of ergonomic hazards. For example, in our workplace, the chair we use to sit down while we are at work, if it's a Paco chair with no adequate back that can have a cushion on our back, when we sit on it, what happens? We begin to have waist pain, we begin to have back pain. Or when we have too much workload and we need to carry something that is heavier than us, we begin to have waist pain, we begin to have hand pain. So that is ergonomic hazard. The next hazard is the psychosocial hazard. Sexual harassment, stress, violence, bullying, psychosocial in the sense that it has to do with our brains. It has to do with our mental health. So such hazards are called psychosocial hazards. Sorry. Please mute yourselves. Okay. We also have chemical hazard, which of course we usually see them in our labs, sometimes in our home. Unlabeled liquid. There's one story I heard where, you know, in the factory or in the manufacturing session, of course, we have cleaners in our offices, we have cleaners in our schools, and they use liquids. And we know that in Nigeria, sometimes we use some of these liquids that are not from a particular manufacturing firm, and they don't have labels. You see them in our Ragolis bottled water. You see them in our Coke labeled containers, plastic containers. So one day, a cleaner was cleaning and he or she was tired, wanted to relax. And they usually have a workstation, a cupboard where they keep their materials and their resources. So, of course, what they usually keep there is, please let's mute ourselves. What they usually keep there is edibles, things that they can eat. And usually keep water, they keep other things that they can actually drink, including soft drink. So one day, one lady went there to relax, and he or she wanted to relax and take something. She just picked. Wasila, please mute yourself. I muted you and you're muting yourself, please. Okay, so he or she wanted to take, thinking that is a water inside. She drank the contents, not knowing that is actually one of those contents they used to wash the toilet. She drank it and it went into her stomach. So what am I trying to say? Unlabeled liquid, even in our houses, even in school, even in the chemical lab, you would see that everything is adequately labeled. Flammable substances, harmful gases, gases like our cooking gases, gases like the one in the periodic table that we use in our labs, they are part of hazards. Physical, extreme weather conditions, high, cold, hot weather conditions are all physical hazards. Physical in the sense that these are things that we see with our own eyes and we feel them. We see and we feel them. Anything physical is what we see and feel. So anything we see and feel that has the potential to cause harm to us or damage to property is actually a physical hazard. Extreme noise, where someone is shouting and shouting, we usually tell our students in class, stop making noise, stop making noise. That is a hazard because the noise has the potential to cause stress. It has the potential to cause an emotional issue for people that don't like noisy areas. Also radiation in the sense that, do we know that there are some persons that high sun rays from the sun, high rays from the sun has the potential to cause skin burn on their skin. So in that sense, that skin or that sun is a hazard to the person. Then finally, we have safety. So safety is, example, spills on the floor, water on the floor. You are blocking a walkway. Someone is falling from a height. We have exposed wires. Exposed wires like the ones we sometimes see in our houses, sometimes in our extensions. Exposed wires are wires that do not have the coverings. Those things that usually cover the live wire itself. So when it's off, they actually exposed wire. It's having a potential to cause harm. Then also damage, do you know that damaged carpet can also become a hazard? A damaged carpet that, for example, it's facing upward. It has folded to the point that it's facing upward, or it has divided somewhere, and someone is stepping on it with the full confidence that it's actually intact. The person can actually slip and fall. So these are the categories of hazard. So whichever one you are going to identify, or you will be identifying yourself, know that they come from these 5 or 6 sources: biological, economic, psychosocial, chemical, physical, and what? Safety. So let's move on. So individually, I want like 2 persons, or not just 2 persons, in the comment section, list 10 hazards in your school environment. You can unmute yourself and say it. You can unmute yourself and say it. You can type it in the comment section if you're in a noisy area. I want the feedback from you guys. Based on what we've learned, list 10 hazards in your school environment. Or you can choose it from your home. I know we want to bring the Nigerian mentality. It's not my home. Oh. Hazard cannot be my home. Oh. But of course, you understand what I'm trying to say. List 10 hazards in your school, in your home. You can put it in the comment section. You can unmute yourselves and say it. So let me flip back to the categories of hazards so that you can understand what I'm trying to say, or some of the examples. So using this, don't list the ones I've listed here. List 10 hazards. If like 2 or 3 persons answer me, I'll move on. Okay, is anybody not saying anything? Okay, oh, iPhone, I forgot your name. Unlabeled chemicals in the laboratory, yes. Taped wire, yes. In the school environment, okay, list 1. If you can remember one, please list it. If you can remember one, just say it. Our staircase, yes, staircase has a potential if it's not properly used. Electrical connections, yes. 40 children, oh my God, this is actually nice. 40 children swings on the playing ground. It's actually a very big hazard. One that has caused most schools a very big issue. A pointed nail from a set of wood, especially our sitting decks in our classes. Painting a class white, oh my God. Joseph, thank you very much, Mr. Joseph. Painting a class while classes are going on is actually a very big hazard, because the chemicals that is used to produce paints are actually harmful chemicals that we should not ingest. Even though the scent, they have a very beautiful scent. They are not, and we know that these children that are in our classes, each and every one of them have different health structure. Some of them can react to a whole lot of things that we might not even be aware of, because as a school, sometimes we don't conduct health checks for our students. So you don't know the health conditions of a particular child. Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph. Broken desks and chairs, big hazard. Broken school fence, a very big security issue. We are going to see that it was actually a hazard, because a broken fence, someone can jump the broken fence and come into the compound and kidnap a child, or even the children themselves can actually jump through that fence and leave the school. Bad chair with sharp nails, open computer systems. My God, this is actually nice. A story building with no barrier at the first floor. We see that a lot in schools. I'm happy that we are all listing this, because if we as teachers are not seeing it, parents are seeing them. And they can actually use that to decide not to bring their child to the school, but they won't tell you as a school owner. Children running around in class can be hazardous, because they can actually become harm to themselves and harm to others. Sorry about that. Fumigation. during school session. Oh God, I really love your feedbacks. Thank you very much. Play with sharp objects. Chemicals in the chemistry lab that are unlabeled, actually important. The use of wrong equipment. Oh, not controlling the children properly during exercise. Big hazard. Unfiltered drinking water. Oh my God. Leaving children without a guide. We know that children are usually adventurous. Oh, thank you very much, everyone. I really love this. So let's move on. Let's move on for the sake of time. I like the fact that I really understand what a hazard is. Now that we have seen what a hazard is, let's go over to control measures. Let's see. Oh, sorry. This is supposed to be risk. Let's see what a risk is. Now we have looked at hazard. Let's see what a risk is. So what is a risk? A risk is the likelihood, great or small, that someone will be harmed by a hazard, together with the severity of the harm suffered. Let me break it down. We've seen that hazard is anything that has the likelihood to cause harm. Okay? Now, risk in its own, in health and safety, please note that in every sector or in every discipline, they have their own risk. We have financial risk. We have economical risk. We have medical risk. But in health and safety here, a risk is actually the harm cause, the severity, which can be great or small, of the harm suffered. If you look at this picture that is here, you will see that likelihood and probability times the severity will give you the risk. That's a mathematical formula for risk. The likelihood times severity. The likelihood of a hazard and the probability of a hazard causing what? Pain or injury or harm or damage. Now, that injury or harm or damage, is it high? Is it low? Which is the severity? Gives you the risk. So a risk can be high, a risk can be medium, a risk can be low. Do we all understand? A risk also depends on the number of people who might be exposed to the hazards. I will explain. For example, if in a room, the room is filled up of smoke, and the people in that room are actually one in number, and the smoke has the potential to cause choking, leading to death of the people in that room. That is one risk. There's that same room filled with smoke, but there's nobody inside the room. Which of them is high and which of them is low? I want someone to respond. You can put it in the comment section. A room that is filled with smoke, but we have one person inside. And a room that is filled with smoke, but nobody is inside. Which one is high? Which one is low? Based on the risk. Well, of course, we know that a room filled with smoke has the potential, it's a hazard. It's an unsafe condition and also a hazard. Has the potential to cause choking to a person and of course can lead to death. But a room with smoke that does not have anyone inside, although it has the potential to cause choking and death, but there's nobody inside. So is the risk of that smoke in that room high or low based on the number of persons inside? Please let me know. The room with the smoke and someone inside, is the risk high or low? The room with the smoke without someone inside, is the risk high or low? Thank you, Zainab. Low with nobody, high with someone inside. Do we all agree? The room with someone inside is high. Thank you, Charity. The room with someone inside is high. Thank you, Bethel. Okay, let me believe that all of you saying yes, yes, yes. You're actually trying to tell me that the room with someone inside is actually, the risk is high. So note that when you are actually calculating your own risk based on identified hazards, note that the number of people who might be exposed to that risk will determine if the risk is high, low, or medium. Let me use another example so that we understand. On a walkway, let's say, for example, in a walkway in our school, there is water on the floor within a section of the floor. And within that walkway, we usually have more than 10 persons going through that walkway. But within that point in time, it is actually one person that is actually using that walkway because everybody is inside and it's not break time yet. And the point in time where it is break time and everybody is outside and using the walkway, which one has a high risk? Which one has a medium or low risk? Water on the walkway, everybody is inside. It is not break time yet. Like 1 or 2 persons can use that walkway. Or everybody is inside, everybody is outside or break, and water is on the one part of the walkway. Is it high or is it low? Is it high if people are more outside, or is it high if people are more inside? It's high when everyone is outside. Thank you very much. Sorry, please try and change your name. I'm tempted to call you iPhone again. Sorry. Thank you, Charity. Everybody outside on break, because we know that the more people that passes that road when there's water there, the high likelihood that someone will fall. If one person passes that water and in the next 1 hour, nobody passes that place again, nobody will fall. The likelihood of anybody falling will reduce, will be low. Definitely the risk is low. Do we all understand? I'm happy that we're understanding this. So let's move on. So this is a perfect example of a description of the difference between the hazard and the risk. Hazard plus exposure equals to risk. And most times it leads to fatality, permanent disability, injury. Let me describe what we have in this picture. The hazard here is the shark. Because we know that the shark can kill. If it doesn't kill, it will leave you with permanent disability injury in this case, because it can tear off your arm, tear off one part of your skin. Now, the shark is there, is a hazard, it has a likelihood, but nothing happened. Now, when a human being now comes close, which is the exposure now, a risk has been triggered. It will now depend if the person cut off the person's head or it cuts off the person's leg, will now determine if the risk is high or low. In this case, if he cuts off the person's leg, we can say that the risk is high. If the shark cuts off maybe a hairstring of the person, the risk was low. But if you, as a person, want to analyze this risk now, what you are going to analyze here is the fact that the risk is high, because the potential of a shark coming closer to a human being without causing a permanent disability injury or a fatality is actually very low in most cases. Okay, let us look at another example. We love the beach very well. We all love the beach. I love the beach. I love the beach. You love the beach. We go there for holidays. We go there for holidays. But the sun now, in this case, of course, the sun does not have anything to do on us as Nigerians. We are born in the sun. We are raised in the sun. Our skin can absorb it. But people that react to the sun, their skin reacts to the sun. You are on a beach enjoying, and the sun is there. The sun is it rising or setting now? I'm trying to remember. It's coming up. The sun is coming up, and it now sets right above you. You begin to feel a heat. But when the sun, you are not exposed to the sun, there was no risk of you having hot body, or the sun frying your skin. But because you are exposed, you can see the people in the next picture. You can see those persons lying down that use their umbrella. What they have been able to do there is they have been able to reduce their own risk by putting a control measure, which we are going to see on the next slide, which is what? The umbrella. The umbrella reduces the sun rays on their skin. thereby reducing what? The risk. In that sense, the risk is low now. But the guy laying bed there, the risk is high because he's directly exposed to the hazard. I don't know if you can see this screen. If you can see this screen, it's still another example. You can see that man walking towards a pothole. The pothole there is a hazard and also a risk. But if you look at the first picture, you would see that it is actually wide, but it is not deep. Okay? That means it has a high probability because it is wide. The probability of the man falling in that hole is high because that pothole is wide. But if the man falls inside, the risk will be low because the impact on him is not going to get injured because the pothole is not deep. You can see the second picture. He's walking over. Of course, the pothole is not wide. Definitely, there's a low probability of him falling into that hole. The impact, if he falls in that hole, will be minimal because he can actually walk over the hole or the pothole. Then the third picture there, you can see that the pothole is very deep. Okay? And the probability of him falling into that hole is low because he can actually jump. It is easier for him to jump over. Okay? But if he eventually falls into that hole, the impact on him, which of course is the risk, will be high because it is either he breaks his leg, he breaks his head, or he dies because the hole is very deep. So these pictorial examples is just helping you to understand the difference between a risk, how you can actually assess if a risk is high, if a risk is low, so that you can be able to understand. Then the last picture, you can see that the pothole is very wide and it's very deep with various, what most of our children in the school, or even we as adults sometimes call chukuchuku. It has various spikes. Those spikes can actually be shot. If he falls into that hole, he's dead. What is the probability of him jumping that hole and not having injury? Very high. The probability of him falling into that hole is very high because the hole is very wide. He can't jump over it as a human. Then, if he falls into that hole, the impact on him, which is the risk, is very high because it can lead to death or permanent disability injury. So this gives us a pictorial breakdown of the hazards. Okay? Now, for our second discussion, class discussion, let's look at this picture and give me reasons or explain to us why each of these ladders are rated high, medium, and low. The hazard on the floor, on the wall, sorry, are risk. We've done our assessment. I have done my assessment, and I have seen that the first one has a high risk, the second one has a medium risk, and the last one has a low risk. So look at this picture based on what we've discussed or based on what I've walked you through. Why are each of these ladders rated as high, medium, and low based on the risk? You can type in the comment section. If it's too long for you to type, you can unmute yourselves and let's hear from you. It's a class discussion. Yes, yes, yes. I'm waiting on you. Yes, please.
Hello.
Okay, the first one, which is, can you hear me?
Yes, Bethel. Bethel,
Okay.
please go on.
The red ladder has
Okay.
much patches now, it's broken. I said the red ladder has patches, like it's broken. It cannot carry someone's weight like that. Someone will fall off from the ladder, but the medium one is okay. It can comfortably carry the person to the other side of the fence. Then the one with the low risk, there's no risk in it. The person will safely land to the other side.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let me read the comments here. Okay. Damilare said the first one is high because it is broken. Okay, not balanced and can break into pieces. Okay, Zainab said the lower part and the upper part of the ladder determines the extent. Oh, I love this. The lower part and the upper part of the ladder determines the extent of the risk. So what you are trying to say here is the wrongs. It's called a wrong.
Of the high one. Yeah.
Who is speaking, please? Abidemi.
Zainab. I
Yes.
said high one. I thought it's broken in the middle.
Yeah, okay.
The high one is broken in the middle. Yes, Zainab. Thank you. And Ms.
The red
Abidemi.
one, yeah, the red one has broken steps,
Some
and does
broken
not have
steps.
secure. It's not being secured at the bottom parts and at the upper parts too. While the medium one, the yellow one, the down part is not secured and has a bit of a broken step. I think one step there.
Okay.
And there's no latch, no secure. It's not secured at the top.
Latch. You actually use the word, the exact word for it. Thank you.
But the green one is secured in both ways and no broken steps.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Abidemi. Ms. Abidemi. That is lovely. I love your attention to details. Now, let's take this as a cue. When you are conducting you're identifying a hazard and you are doing a risk assessment of that hazard that you identify, always pay attention to details, because it is in that details that helps you determine if the risk is high, if it is low, if it is medium. And where a risk is high, that is where you pay much priority. We'll see that. We'll see that towards the this session. Let's focus on this. So, like Ms. Abidemi said, and thank you very much for your Kelvin Bella. The first one has a high risk because it has a high proportion of injuring the individual. The medium one has a step that is broken but can avoid it, so the risk is minimal. Yes. The first one, which is high, you can see that the wrongs. So those lines connecting the two, is it horizontal now or vertical? Connecting those two areas that are broken are known as what? Wrongs. So we can see that for the high one, we have multiple wrongs that are broken. The base, which gives it balance. We are using stone to he used stone in supporting the first one, and even the second side is broken. So which makes the risk very high. Imagine climbing this type of ladder. Now let's go back again. The probability of you falling on the first ladder, is it high or low? I want a voice. Is it high or low?
It's high.
High. Because immediately you step
It's
on one.
high.
Yes, please. Immediately you step on one wrong, you are going down. So even if you try, maybe your weight is not maybe your weight is not too much. Okay, so okay, I wanted to speak Yoruba. I know I have a multilingual person here. I also have outside, but let me break it down in pidgin. And make a manager. Make a manager. Okay, my weight is not too much. Let me manage and stay on this side. You stay on one side. Believe me, before you get to the second, third wrong, we are going down. But the medium one, you can see that it's just one wrong that is broken. Then the base, which is not top notch, but it's manageable. The risk is actually medium. Then the one which is low doesn't mean someone cannot fall from it. Oh, because it is low doesn't mean someone cannot fall from it. Oh, I'm repeating it because you won't say tomorrow that because a risk is low based on your assessment, an accident cannot happen from it, injury cannot happen, property damage cannot happen, or nothing can happen. No. The fact that it's low doesn't mean nothing can happen, but it is more safer than others. Okay? You can see that the wrong, like Mr. Abidemi mentioned, the wrong are complete, not broken, and is actually properly hung to the wall. It is clipped to the wall. And the base, which is actually making it have a balance, is complete. Thank you very much, everyone that contributed. I love this class very much. Very, very engaging. So, second activity now. Let's look at another ladder. I want to tax our brain on the spot so that I will understand that what I'm actually teaching you guys is you understand it, because this is the same way you also communicate it to your children. Look at the second picture, this second picture. Why is the risk judged high, medium, or low? I don't need to do further explanation here. Again, comment section. You can unmute yourselves and speak. This same ladder.
Because, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, please. Adesanya.
Okay, on the green side,
Okay.
when you can easily, when you want to fall, you can easily help yourself. Medium size, you can easily help yourself too.
Okay.
But on that high place, you can't help yourself that much. You sustain injury or have a broken toe. There's no how. That's how it says.
Thank you very much. I'm actually clapping for you. I wish I cannot clap and everybody can hear. I'm clapping for you. I need someone else again. I need someone else in the comment section. I will read it out. Unmute yourself. Charity, go on.
The green side, it has the legs are okay and it's balanced.
Okay.
The legs, they are stable. Then that yellow one is on top of the green. There's still risks there because anything can happen there. No legs balancing on it. It's not balancing on any leg, just balancing on that green one. Even the red one is very, very dangerous because no leg for stability at all.
Yes.
Just the green one is stable.
Yes. Thank you very much, Charity. Thank you very much.
From my own suggestion, the green side is closer to the floor. So you can just without making without having any injury.
Yes.
The medium as well, you can as well fall and sustain just little injury.
Yes.
While if you are not top, that high one, once you fall, the injury is going to be much more than the medium size.
Thank you very much. So let me read from the comment section now. Damilare said, personally, I feel the higher you mount the ladder, the higher the risk. Shikena, he just summarized everything we've all said. The higher you climb the ladder, the higher the risk. Just like in the corporate ladder, in the corporate world, where they say the higher you climb the ladder in position, the more your responsibility. Same thing applies here. The higher you climb this ladder, the higher the risk. Because where you have this green the low doesn't mean that if someone falls there from that height, they won't get injured. They can get injured. The medium doesn't mean if someone falls there, nothing will happen. Even someone can actually even die from this medium. If someone falls from this medium. Someone can have a broken leg, a permanent disability injury, if someone falls from this medium area. Of course, we know. If someone falls from this high, definitely it can lead to permanent disability injury. It can also lead to death. But what this is trying to point out to us is, know that you rate your risk based on the probability. Now, the probability of someone falling from this base or where you have the low is actually low. And if the person falls there, the severity now is actually low, which is why the risk is low. If someone goes to the medium and falls from that rung in the medium, the probability that someone can fall there is medium. The probability that, or the severity, is actually medium because the person can actually break a leg. So note that your risk is equals to the likelihood of the accident, or sorry, the likelihood of the hazard that you have identified times the severity. Severity means consequences. Consequences can be the broken leg, or someone died, or someone has a cut, an injury, or a property damage. Okay, let me use an example of severity or consequence now. If a full house collapses and one part of the wall of the house collapses, which one has a more higher severity? Is it the full house that collapsed, or one part of the wall of the house collapsed? Which one has the higher severity? The full house has the higher severity.
Yes.
Because the complete house went down. So when you are calculating a risk, always take into consideration three major factors: the likelihood, the consequences, and also the number of persons exposed to that hazard will determine your what? Your risk. Will determine how high, how medium, or how low the risk will become. For example, like this ladder now, if 3 persons are actually climbing these 3 ladders all at once, the severity, based on the fact that we have multiple people climbing it, will be high, because if an injury happens to 1 person and it happens to 3 persons, 3 persons having injury is more higher than one person having an injury. Do you see that now? So have that at the back of your mind when you're doing your own assessment, when you're teaching these children. Try and balance it. Know that your risk depends on the hazard. And we say a hazard is anything that has the likelihood or the potential to cause harm, injury, damage to property. You also take into consideration the consequences. Is it high, is it medium, is it low? And we also take into consideration the number of persons exposed to that hazard. So let's move on. So now we've understand hazard, we've looked at hazard, we've looked at risk, we've looked at, let's look at control measures. Sorry, I used, yes, control measures. Okay. So what are control measures in this sense? Control or elimination measures. Control measures are basically actions that we take to reduce or even take it away the potential of exposure to a hazard. That is what a control measure is. Those things you do to ensure that the hazards that you've identified does not lead to accidents. That is what is called control measures in safety and health. So when you've identified the hazard, you've done your assessment, and you've seen that the hazard is high. Sorry, the risk is high. It is low. It is medium. And you want to do something to ensure that that high risk that you've identified, you want to bring it down to low. All those things you put into play are what is called control measures. Let me flip back. Let me use this to do an example to explain control measure. Now, this ladder that is high, that the risk is high, if we want to do something about it to ensure that we take it to low, what are we going to do? Let me hear it from your mouth. If you want to do something, you want to put in a control measure or an elimination measure to ensure that this hazard that you've identified, that the risk is high, you want to take it to low. What are you going to do? Someone said enclosure. How? Kelvin Berra, you said enclosure. How? Charity, please go on.
You are going to fix up those places that are damaged.
You are going to fix up those places that are what? Damaged. That is a control measure. You are going to repair the ladder. So that thing, fixing up that ladder, is called what? Control measure. Okay? We'll see different type of control measure we have. Now, in safety, there's what we call hierarchy of control. Now, we understand hierarchy means levels. We understand hierarchy means stages. Okay? We understand hierarchy means, in our organization, we call the hierarchy of position, where we know that the MD or the school owner is actually the top. If the school has a board, the board has the most hierarchy. So in this sense, in controlling the hazards, in controlling identifying hazards and risks, we have hierarchy. Then one of them is elimination. That means you remove the hazard. For example, you have in your class, you have a chair that the student sits on. I will use that broken chair throughout to do an example of all this hierarchy of control. That broken chair is a hazard. And the potential of it harming a student is there. And you want to apply the elimination method in the hierarchy of control. You want to remove the hazard. What do? You take away that chair. You remove the chair from this class, not just from the class itself. You remove it from the school. You have successfully eliminated the hazard. Okay? That means don't even bring it towards inside the class, inside the school. Or you are going to a market and you want to buy a chair. Let me still continue to use a chair in your classroom. You see a plastic chair. You see a wooden chair. Now, the likelihood of a plastic chair getting broken by the children because of their nature is high. But the likelihood of the plastic chair getting broken by the children because of their nature is low. And For you now to now bring that risk or that hazard into your school, you decide, let me go with the wooden chair. In that sense, you've taken away the hazard of that plastic chair by not bringing it to the school, knowing that the wooden chair will last longer for you. And the likelihood of the chair getting broken is low. That means you've eliminated it. Because if you have brought that plastic chair to the class, one day, one of the students will want to sit on it and jump. You know the way children sit on chairs. They can just decide to jump and sit, and in jumping, the chair gets broken. But if you don't bring it into that your school at all, you've eliminated it. That means you remove the hazard. Then the second one is substitution. Let me use a chair as an example now. You want to substitute a hazard by replacing it with a less hazardous one. Now you have a plastic chair in your school. You want to change it to a wooden chair because the plastic chair has the potential to get broken more often. And you want to bring it with a wooden chair that has the potential or the likelihood to not get broken often. You now take away the plastic chair and bring in the wooden chair. In that sense, you are replacing the hazard with a less hazard. Let me use another example for substitution. You are using a chemical to clean up your house. You open the chemical. Maybe you are using it to clean up your floor. You open it, you use it today. And after using it, you realize that when you inhale those chemicals, you had nosocomial infections, you had catarrh, or you had reactions to it. And you want to now bring in another chemical that does not affect your system. That way you are substituting that hazardous chemical with a less hazardous chemical. Because the fact that you are bringing a cleaning agent that does not react to your skin, or you don't inhale it, or does not react, you don't react to it, doesn't mean that if someone else is using that same chemical, he or she will not react to it. That means you are bringing it one that is not as highly hazardous to one that is less hazardous. Okay. Then engineering control involves putting in physical measures that helps you to isolate the hazard. Isolation in this sense, let me use the biological explanation of isolation here, where it states that you take it away. You know, during that time when we had COVID, where they say if they test and you are positive, they will isolate you. That's a perfect example. What they are actually doing there is trying to put in engineering measure by putting you in a room, which is a physical thing that you can see. So all engineering measures are actually physical. You can see them with your eyes, or you can feel them. So isolating a coronavirus patient by putting them in a room and locking them inside that room is called engineering control, because that way those walls you are putting in the person is actually an engineering method. Let me use another example. We all have transformers in our streets. Those transformers, we know that coming closer to them or touching them, you are definitely going to visit Baba God. And one of the control measures that we put in place to ensure that people don't come closer to it is either we put a mesh fence, those fences that can help you see inside of the transformer, or we put a wall, a brick wall. So what we've successfully done there is to what? Put in engineering control to ensure that people don't come closer to that transformer. That is engineering control. Then administrative control is putting in measures to change the way people work. Measures like training. So what I'm doing here now is an administrative control. If I am training people, if you are training your students, if you are writing procedures, for example, when you give your children rules and regulation, what you are trying to do is you are trying to manage the way they work. You are trying to manage how they do things. So if I put in a measure like don't wash your hand here, or don't open this door, or don't fight in class, what you're actually putting in place is called administrative control. What if I write those instructions and I paste them on the wall? Like when you say, don't make noise, and you paste it on the wall in form of signages. We call them signages or signs. what you're actually putting there is called administrative control, because you are trying to tell people to change the way they work. Then the last is PPE, which is called personal protective equipment. Personal protective equipment like our nose mask, which can be used for coronavirus or any other respiratory disease, your safety boots, your helmets. One personal protective equipment that we mostly use in the office is our cardigans, we call them sweaters, which reduces the effects of those ACs or per se or cold conditions on your skin. So PPE, like you've seen on the arrow in the picture in front of you, is saying that from top to bottom, the most effective is elimination. Don't bring it at all. So when you begin to go down to personal protective equipment, then you are actually using the least effective means of controlling a hazard. For example, this personal protective equipment, I would flip back to the ladder that we wanted to use. For this high risk, if I want to climb it now, and I use a helmet, a safety boot, and also probably a hand glove while climbing, does that mean I will not fall? I'm asking the house now. Does it mean I will not fall?
You will fall.
I will definitely fall. But if I fall and I'm putting on a helmet, what would the helmet help me do? Or what will it do for me?
To protect the head.
It's to protect my head. So that is to tell you that PPEs do not take away the hazards. Rather, they limit or they reduce the severity, the consequences of the hazard on you. Let me give you another example of why PPE is in this, because I know most times when we talk about safety, one of the things that people remember is personal protective equipment. That I say is safety. For example, let me use that same example of in a room where there's smoke. I am in a room where there's smoke, and I'm putting on probably a respirator or a nose mask. Will it stop me from inhaling those smoke or that smoke?
No.
Rather, it will reduce the quantity of smoke that I am inhaling, which is a lot different from when I eliminate it. Like, okay, the elimination in the smoke scenario is I will not be inside that room where there is smoke, not be me and you. Rather, give me a room where there is no smoke or where there's no fumes. I know in Nigeria, when we say smoke, we have most times related to people that take Indian hemp cigarette and the likes. But know what I'm trying to say. In a room where, let me use fumes, but fumes is a scientific word, so I'm trying to bring it so that you all understand. In a room where there is smoke. But what if we now put an engineering control? So an example of a room where there is smoke is using an engineering control is putting in what we call local exhaust vents. If you have been to factories, if you have been to some industrial kitchens, if you have been to even some toilets, okay, let me use some toilets. You will see some toilets, there's a fan in some toilets that rolls. And sometimes you wonder what that fan does. So what the fan does is actually taking away whatever, be it heat, or be it fumes, or be it smoke or odor within that room. It takes it away. That is an engineering control, physical, what we see to reduce the hazard. Let's use this as an example. I've mentioned coronavirus, but let's see how we can apply the hierarchy of control for COVID-19 cases. They've tested someone, the person is positive for coronavirus. What do we do? Remove the hazards. Now we've known that the person already has the hazard. The person has the risk. Or, okay, we are going to a new country where there's coronavirus everywhere. We'll eliminate the hazard. We know that as at then, the hazards cannot be eliminated, cannot be removed, but rather we stayed at home and avoid contact with hazards, which is the COVID-19, or avoided contact with people as well. So in this sense now, we see that we can't completely take away the hazard, we can't eliminate it, but rather we stayed at home to reduce our contact with people that has it. Then for substitution, of course, you can't substitute coronavirus, which is in the air. It cannot replace the hazard, substitute or change the work process by social distancing and remote working. So what we did is to ensure that people do not come into contact with any other person by changing how people work, which led to more people working online, people working from home. That is one of the things that coronavirus bred in the working system. People work from home, hybrid sessions, okay? Then for engineering control, we use thermal scanning, isolating identified workers, like I said previously, maintaining social distancing by marking. So, I said engineering control are things that we can see with our eyes, physical, and we can feel them. So those times when we use social distancing by marking and barricade, we are actually applying engineering control for COVID-19. Then administrative controls. We use signs, we use posters, we use hand wash, we use sanitizing information, hand wash and sanitizing information, we use instruction, trainings, and the likes in the media, on the radio station, is to change the way people work so that they can't come in contact with coronavirus. Then finally, personal protective equipment. People were mandated to use hand gloves. People were mandated to use face masks. And there was strict monitoring of the usage. So you can see how we've applied different methods to control COVID-19, or how different method was used to control and eliminate COVID-19, which is a hazard. Note now that in controlling or eliminating a hazard, you can actually use multiple control measures. So you don't limit your control measures to one. You can use one or any of them. And also note that from elimination to substitution, you are not controlling the hazards, but rather from engineering controls down to PPE, you are controlling. And we know that anything that has resulted to controlling, there's more tendency for the controls to fail. Do we understand? So the lower you come, the more you are putting the hazards in people's hand, or in a situation where you have to start controlling them. But if you don't bring the hazard by eliminating, you don't need to bother yourselves about controlling them. Let's look at one final example. Hierarchy of control for a bad chair in the classroom. So let's use a bad chair in the classroom as an example. The elimination here now. Take away the bad chair from the classroom. I've used that as an example. Substitute, replace with another chair. Engineering control, repair the chair. I wanted to say repair the chair using other tools as well. Like for example, a bad chair might need you to bring extra wood to repair it. So in that case, you are using engineering control. Probably you need to brace it somewhere so that it doesn't bend towards one angle. Administrative control is you want the student either verbally or either by putting a sign on the chair that, don't sit on this chair. It is highly dangerous. You are going to get injured. You put the paper there and you paste it there. That is administrative control. Then for personal protective equipment, you use hand glove, you use safety boot. But can we use safety boot for a bad chair? Will it be ideal for us to use it? That will depend on you to determine based on the situation. Okay, so let's move on. If you are really following, please, I want to see in the comment section, say yes, 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 I am following, I am understanding. Please, if you have any question, you can unmute your mic and ask me, please, so that we all be in the same,
yes, I have
on the same pedestal. Okay, yes, please.
But when you mentioned the categories of hazard that we have, like the chemical, biological, physical, and the rest.
Yes.
You made mention of safety.
Yes.
I don't really understand how safety is part of the categories of hazard.
Okay.
Maybe you can, the definition of safety and
yeah.
I didn't get that.
Yes. Thank you very much for bringing it up. And I know she has asked a question that most of us are wondering. Abby? So when we say categories, now when I want to categorize something, I put them under different names. Okay. For this issue of hazards now, we know that safety is when someone is okay or when every situation is fine, there's no cause for alarm, there's no source of danger or or property damaging. Fine and good. But in this case, we have to, it is categorized under safety because this specifically, these ones that you are seeing, it becomes a safety hazard if you block a walkway. If you block a walkway, it becomes a safety hazard. If you have a damaged carpet, it becomes a safety hazard because you are actually putting the safety of people into a very serious situation or a very bad situation. Do we understand? Like for biological, we all know that bacteria, some bacteria are useful. The bacteria that makes us our yogurt, is it not useful? For those of us that don't know, your yogurt is made from bacteria. Some viruses are actually used to treat people. Okay? Same thing as blood. But it doesn't mean that everything biological is bad, or every chemical is bad, or every economic issue is bad, or every physical issues are bad. It was categorized under safety because these things put you, there's no way we can actually put them on. Okay, let's say, for example, spills on the floor. You can't put it on any category of safety here. Do we understand? You can't put it in chemical. You can't put it in biological. You can't put it in psychosocial. No. Blocked walkway, you can't put it in any of these categories. Do we understand? Abidemi, does that answer your question?
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Not exactly.
Okay, not exactly. But hopefully, as the session continues, you will definitely understand. But note that when we say categories and we categorize some hazard, you remember these spills on the floor, blocked way, are all examples of hazard that have been categorized under safety hazards. That means it is actually putting your safety, my safety, into a bad situation or into a bad condition. Do we understand? So take it like that, but as the session goes on, you will definitely pick it up. Okay.
So can we say something like environmental or something?
Okay, when you say environmental hazard. So when you say environment, from my own point, I like how interactive this session is. When you say environment, I'm actually a health, safety, and environment professional. So when you say environment, I know when you say environment in your own profession, immediately you're actually talking about your immediate surrounding, right? Which put it in a context here. That fine, we can put the environment, but if you put it as environmental hazards, that means we are trying to bring in nature here, because environment also means the nature, which we have classified under, what's it called now? The first one, which is biological. Do you see the crux here now? So if you put it under environmental, we are actually saying, okay, nature now, in this sense. Nature, of course, we've had a biological hazard, which actually addresses that. But note that these things are all hazards. Why it is being put under categories is to ensure or give you a guidance of where and where you should look at. Because if I don't tell you that the sputum of a tuberculosis patient is a hazard, you won't think of that area. Or if I don't tell you the blood of an HIV patient, if left unattended, is a hazard, you won't think of it as a hazard. Do you understand? Okay, so now let's look at the final one, risk assessment. Now we've looked at hazard, we've looked at risk, we've looked at control measures. So what is a risk assessment? It is a careful examination of what in your work or activity could cause harm to people or even damage to property, and you weigh them up whether you have precautions or control measures necessary to prevent the harm. And if you don't have precautions or measures necessary to prevent the harm, you now put in extra control measures to control or prevent the harm. So your risk assessment is basically, you identify a hazard, you've assessed it. Is it high? Is the risk high? Is it low? Or is it medium? Okay, what are we doing presently to ensure that this hazard does not cause harm, injury, or damage to property? Okay, we are actually training our children so that they know the procedure. Okay, what extra thing do we need to do? Okay, so let's ensure that we put in, we buy a key to lock the door so that they know that they don't go into that room because it is hazardous. So you identifying a hazard, you assessing that hazard, and ensuring that you know the risk. Is it high? Is it low? And you putting in control measure. An extra control measure is known as risk assessment. Okay. So all these things we've been looking from beginning. What is the hazard? What is the risk? What is the control measure? This is the final bus stop. This is where you use that knowledge. Okay. So who should control or who should conduct a risk assessment? So by law, even in Nigerian law, every employer is supposed to conduct a risk assessment and put in control measures. So recently, I don't know if you are aware, there is this policy from Nigeria on school safety that has been signed into law on school safety that puts in law and guidance on how you can implement health and safety in your school. Don't worry, it is a planned program that I'm going to bring in experts that will discuss that law so that we all understand what is required of us when it has to do with safety in our school. But let's focus on what we have here. So the employer is responsible for doing a risk assessment. Now the employer can appoint you to do the risk assessment on their behalf, just like you are teaching students on their behalf, just like you are doing other assigned activity on behalf of the school. They can assign one or more employees or someone outside the business who is a consultant to do it. But no matter who does it, the risk assessment is not done by just one person. It is done in collaboration with everybody, including the students if you are doing in a school, or workers if you are doing in a workplace. Everybody will see that much later. Then, so what is different between a hazard and a risk? We've seen a hazard, we've seen a risk. Let's use this picture. I like using pictures. So a lion, is it a hazard or not a hazard? Of course it's a hazard because it has the potential to cause accidents. Okay. And now when the hazards, a human now come in the same area with the hazards, a risk has been activated. Now, it now depends on how high or how low is the risk. Now, since the risk has been activated, you now put in a risk reduction measure, which is also known as control measure or elimination measure. You put a safeguard. Now, this cage covering the lion is known as what? What category or what hierarchy in our hierarchy of control is this cage? I want someone to mention. In our hierarchy of control, where we have elimination, substitution, engineering, administrative, and PPE.
Engineering.
Oh, God. Thank you very much. You're actually following. Thank you. I love this. So this cage is actually an engineering control to ensure that the human being does not come in contact or reduce the contact with the hazard. So, but if the hazards, and you've tamed the hazard, you know there are lions that are tamed, and they now coexist with the human, you don't need a risk assessment. Rather, you need a new safety measure. Safety measure like know when the lion is angry, know when the lion needs to eat so that it doesn't eat you, stuff like that. So this is actually the difference between a hazard and a risk. Okay. So what are the steps in conducting a risk assessment? Identify the hazard. You know how to identify a hazard now. Decide who might be harmed. How many persons will be harmed? Who and who? Is it pregnant women? Is it elderly person? Is it children? How many of them? Evaluate the risk and decide on control measure. Will the risk be high? Will the risk be low? Is the risk low? Is the risk high? Is it medium? Then step 4, record your findings, write them down. Then review the risk assessment and update if necessary. Step 4, record your findings, implement them by doing those things you said you want to do or you should do to reduce it, and also communicating it to people that need to know, your students, your other teachers, people in your houses, so that they are aware of these things that you've identified. Okay, so these are the questions you ask when you are doing a risk assessment. Walk through the process of what you are doing, break them down into steps. What are some of the things that might go wrong? You ask yourself the questions or you ask people questions. For example, if you are going to do a risk assessment in someone's house or in someone's office, because they understand the office or the work process more than you have to ask them questions. You ask them, what do you think can go wrong in this your job process? What do you think can happen? You ask them and you write them down. So you also ask them, what are some better additional ways we can actually do these things? So you also ask, what effects might those different ways have on the identified risk to other people and other steps in the process? So identifying risk assessment or conducting risk assessment involves asking questions, asking yourself questions, asking people questions, implementing measures so that you can actually reduce or eliminate them. So that's what a risk assessment does. So let's look at conducting a risk assessment. So this is a template of a risk assessment now. So for example, let's pick a department. Let's pick a department. Hope you can still see my slide, please. I want to type in as we interact. So let's pick a department. Someone identify a department for us in the school that we can conduct a risk assessment.
Playing ground.
Playing ground. Okay, that is the activity, the department. Is a playing ground a department? Let me confirm from others.
Yes.
A playing ground is a department in the school.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. If you all agree, you can put it in the comment section. Okay, someone said no. Damilare said no. Is a playing ground a department in the school? Or a unit? Charity said yes. It's a unit. Okay, so let's go with it. It's a unit. Also a playing ground. Okay. So who is the assessor now? The assessor can be more than one, like I said. Who is going to be our assessor? Someone choose to be an assessor. I don't want to be the assessor. If you want to be the assessor, identify. Okay. Someone used a very, very important department. Damilare wants to be the assessor. So let's use a counseling department, which is a very typical or a very useful department in a school session. Very, very important. So let's go with counseling, please, everybody. I know we can all relate to it. Okay, Damilare is the assessor. Permit me to use your first name only. Okay. Okay, someone said playing ground isn't a department, but there are several hazards there. Of course, would okay, so let's just go with playing ground. Since we have for the purpose of this program, let's use playing ground, please. So we round up real fast. Okay. So what are the activities? Today's date is, of course, there's dates. Let me not waste time. Date of next review is when you feel. So ideally, by law, you are meant to review your risk assessment when every new session as a teacher. Let me break it down to your level. But you are meant to review your risk assessment 1 year if nothing happens, if there's no accident, if there's no legal notice, if there's no new equipment or new teachers or new students. I'm using what you can understand. So these are some of the conditions that make you to review your risk assessment. So what you put there is 1 year. So what are the activities that we have in the playing ground? Children using, I was tempted to write Jangilova. What do you call it in English? I'm going back. Children using what? The swing. Yeah, swing is like one type of it. So children using the swing now. What is one of those hazards that we can point from children using the swing? Let's mention them. I don't want to mention it. Mention 1 or 2. Broken leg is a risk, is a severity. Broken leg is not the hazard. Remember, Kevin Bella, if you remember what we said, broken leg is a severity, the risk. It is not a hazard. What is a hazard in children using a swing?
The hazard is the swing. Then the risk is the children.
Okay, the hazard is the swing, the risk is the children.
Yes.
The swing, yes, on its own is a hazard. If if I don't want to say it, I want someone to say it so we understand. Let me know that we understand what we are saying here. Children using a swing. A swing on its own is a hazard, right? Yes, but if
the swing is faulty.
Thank you very much. So you have a faulty swing. Oh, sorry. Yes, Adarita, thank you. You have a faulty swing. Okay? We know that the swing, if it's faulty, it is a hazard. Okay? Now, that faulty swing, what does it lead to when the children use it?
Risk.
Yes, we know it's a risk, but let's go to the next column.
Injury.
Yes. So who are the parties affected? The children, right?
Yes.
How many of them? Depending on how many you have in your school. So the probability of almost 20 children using that swing is there. Okay? But the children are affected because they are the one using them. So what is the probability of the risk now? The probability of the children having the risk is actually what? Please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. Please mute yourselves. If you are not speaking, mute yourselves. Okay, the risk is high. So what are those risk severity? So what are those severity? Or what are those things that can happen when someone uses a faulty, or when a child uses a faulty swing? Okay. Fall. So what does this fall lead to? Leading to sprained ankle. So it is actually nice for you to state it so that anybody you are giving it to, you are submitting it to, or you are submitting or giving it out to, or people you are using it to train would know. Sprained ankle, bruises, broken bones, etc. and etc. So what is the risk rating? So imagine a child has bruises, the child has broken bones. Is that risk rating high? Is it low or is it medium?
High. It's high.
It is high. Why is it high? Because of the broken bones, because of the bruises. If it will only lead to, based on an assessment, it will only lead to, let's say, scratch or just bruises alone, then the risk rating will be what?
Low.
Will be low or medium. Do we understand?
Yes.
Because it's actually leading to a permanent disability injury like broken leg or even sprained ankle that will cost you a whole lot to treat them. Even these days, in school, when a child has a bruise in school, the parents can actually sue the school. So in this case now, it's high because that suing will cost the school money. So let's focus on this one now. So, okay, let's give example of existing control that we have in a school because of this hazard of faulty swing that we have. Is there existing control measure? Existing control means what you are currently doing to ensure that this risk and this risk severity does not come into play. Apologies for coughing there.
Maybe a routine check on those equipment.
Okay, let's say, for example, in the school, we have an assigned teacher that does what? Routine checks of swings. But still, because of the teacher did not conduct it 2 weeks ago, he did not identify the hazard. The hazard is there. So what do we need to do to put out this hazard that you've identified? What can we do? Using what? Let's take note. Using what? The hierarchy of control. What can we do?
Engineering measure.
What is the engineering measure? State it. What are you going to do?
Repairing the swing.
Repair the swing. So what if the swing is not repairable anymore?
Eliminate it.
Eliminate it by replacing it with a new one.
New one.
Yes. Okay. I don't want to type that. It is actually understand that we understand what we are trying to say. But note that when you are recommending a control measure, there's what is called in safety as low as reasonably practicable. For example, if it's going to cost the school more money to replace the hazard, it is actually advisable that they go for the one that will adequately control the hazard, but also do not cost much on the organization of the school. So if you can repair the swing and it's okay and fine and you made that hazard, please go with it. But if you can't repair the swing, then you change it. And of course, what other control measures can we do? Remember, I told you, you cannot necessarily use just one control measure. So you can use more. In this case now, which other control measure can we use? Which other control measure can we use? We have repaired the swing. The swing is not repaired. The hazard is not there. What else can we do to ensure that we don't have a faulty swing again? I want us to brainstorm. It's a brainstorming session. Okay, we stayed long in this session, but you can actually conduct weekly or daily inspection before the student uses it. In that way, you easily quickly identify it. You can actually, thank you very much, Olakiton, routine maintenance on it by putting oil or something to ensure that that swing maybe is the edges that got broken. Okay. So in putting control measure, always ensure you put someone who is responsible. Is it the maintenance guy that is responsible? Is it the head teacher that is responsible for the inspection? You put it there. Is it your safety officer in your school? You put it there. And you put a deadline. Is it daily or is it by the end of the week or 20th of February? Yes, close supervision of people using it. Additional control measure. Close supervision when children are using it. Yes, it's actually, so close supervision is administrative control in this sense now. Okay, while routine maintenance is also administrative control. No, routine maintenance is actually, yes, administrative control. Okay, then the status is it closed? That is when they implement those control measures, open or ongoing. So this is just basic way of conducting hazard identification and risk assessment. Do we all understand this procedure? Now, let me hear from you guys. Do we understand the procedure before we move on?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's nice. So questions. We've come to the end of this session. I would like to take questions now. Questions. Let the question roll in. Let the questions roll in. Anywhere you need clarity, let me know. Anywhere you need clarity, let me know. Okay. Do we all understand? Let me ask the way you usually ask your children in school. Do you understand? And they'll say yes. Okay. Okay, that's nice to hear.